Hi, I'm John Mallos. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this Monday morning. Glad you're here. Today we're talking about hurricanes. The hurricane season is obviously upon us. We'll talk about Harvey, Irma, and Maria. 436-ME-TV option 11. Can you control Mother Nature? Connect with Me starts right now.
Tonight I want to discuss the importance of the television medium to the American people.
And back here on the program on a Monday morning. Glad you're here on Connect with Me on Me TV Fresno, of course, as usual. And today we have an expert in the house. It's not on the air off the presses, but it should be a very interesting topic. For now, you're watching us live on Comcast, channel 375 as usual. It's Comcast cable, but if you don't have it, it's 13.1, 43.6 over the air broadcast with a television digital antenna. Then the replay of this program comes up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 13.6 YouTube, 8 o'clock tonight, 4.6 Biz TV. After that, you can go to Ventura Broadcasting. You can find that. Just Google it. It'll take you right to our Connect with Me webpage, and then you can find all of our shows dating back to 2012. Before I get into the program today, I do want to mention working on a program for Thursday, possibly, to talk about all these NFL protests that took place over the weekend. Of course, Donald Trump stirring the pot on Friday night with his speech in Alabama. Then you had the major protest over the weekend yesterday during the NFL games, and including the Sunday night football game between the Raiders and the Redskins. So I think the question at this point is whether or not you agree or disagree. I think there are actually two questions. What are the players protesting? Are they protesting the flag, how people are treated in this country, or they're protesting Donald Trump? Maybe all of the above. And the other question is should we be mixing politics with sports? That's the other question. So working on a program for that on Thursday. You can call in and talk about it then, but not today, because today we're talking about Mother Nature. You know, we can control what we say, what we do, our actions, everything else. But one thing you cannot control, and you've heard it before, it's a very old cliche, but you know what? It holds true even in 2017, and it will throughout the entire year, and throughout history it has held true before. You cannot control Mother Nature. Some people learn the hard way. Roll the videotape, and I will show you exactly what I'm talking about. You are looking at Cindy Bean. She is a meteorologist for the National Weather Service right here in Hanford. Well, in Hanford, where they opened their doors more than 22 years ago. The National Weather Service helps monitor everything from Merced County all the way down to the Central Valley into Kern County. And by the way, folks, that includes 7 counties. All the forecasting is done in the operations area with 5 different workstations, as Cindy is standing there near the map explaining how this all works, how the counties, where the counties are that the National Weather Service covers. And generally speaking, 2 to 3 meteorologists are on board at the same time, working at any given time to get the latest weather information to anyone who's seeking it. In its 22 years of operation, the National Weather Service has never closed its doors. Bit of history now. The U.S. Weather Bureau was formed back in 1870, becoming a part of the U.S. government after getting congressional thumbs up and then signed into law by President Ulysses S. Grant. The agency was designed to help inform the military on weather conditions and was placed under the Secretary of War, but in 1970 the name changed to the National Weather Service. Now, the worry about President Trump's proposed 6% cut to the agency and a 16% cut to its parent company, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. The National Weather Service was vital in monitoring all 3 deadly hurricanes, Harvey, Irma, Maria, using high-tech computers for model data, radar, and satellite imagery. The National Weather Service can also monitor television stations in both Fresno and Bakersfield for any additional information. Those are the big screens available to those who work at the National Weather Service in Hanford. They also have their screens at their desk. Look how many screens there are in the Operations Center. It's an amazing center, more than 22 years in running, and we rely on them each and every day. Live in our studio is Kevin Lynott. He is a meteorologist from the National Weather Service in Hanford. He's been there for quite a while. It's not his only job, though. He came from somewhere else. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the effects of Harvey, Irma, Maria. How do hurricanes form? Where do they come from? And the other question is, I know we can't control nature, but have we contributed to global warming that is causing all of this? I don't know. I'm not the expert, but Kevin is. Back in just a moment here on Connect with Me, 436-ME-TV, option 11 in just a moment.
Not sure what you're watching? Want to see what's coming up next? Or just want to browse what's on without the hassle of flipping channels? Your wish has come true. Now you can view schedules for all the digital TV channels available in the Central Valley. Get local weather updates and forecasts, and listen to nationally syndicated Biz Talk Radio, all on KVHF 4.1. Rescan your TV now, then tune in to digital channel 4.1 to start enjoying the all-new TV guide.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Frigidaire Gallery appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy.
Time for that upgrade to an Energy Star qualified French door Frigidaire Gallery refrigerator. Quality appliances for the way you live.
Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise.
Back here on the program talking about trying to control Mother Nature. It's not happening, not now, not in your lifetime, not in mine, not in anyone's. Kevin Lynott is here for the National Weather Service. And I'm sure that maybe I'm preaching to the choir, right? You can't control Mother Nature, is that right?
That's right. Good to be back, John, by the way.
Yeah, welcome back.
I think it's, third or fourth time I think I've been on your show.
But it's been a while. It's been a while since you've been on, but
probably about a year.
Probably about a year since you've been on here. But I did bring you on, and I know there's this controversy now in the NFL and on the flag thing. But to a certain extent, this is important too. And so we thought we'd talk about the hurricanes that have devastated so many areas around the country. You see what's going on in Dominican Republic, San Juan, Puerto Rico, Florida, Houston. We can't control Mother Nature, but the question is, Kevin, and explain in detail, we have a whole hour here, what can we control? What can we control? I mean, when we see a hurricane coming and we have all the data, we know it's on the way, what can people do?
That's a good question, and it's an important question, John, because we do have the technology at the National Weather Service now, and we do have the knowledge in general to see some of these big storms, these big events, if you will, 7, 8, 9 days out. Sometimes even could be up to 2 weeks out. Yeah. So we have a pretty good idea, and we gain more confidence as we see these storms evolve. And again, a lot of it has to do with our technology over the last, especially 5 to 10 years, where we didn't see a lot of this stuff happening maybe 20, 30 years ago. But now we can get a heads up. We can alert the public, alert our officials, folks out there who are, first responders, whoever they might be, to get prepared and know, what necessary measures to take when a storm is possibly headed their way, especially a hurricane, because once we get into, within a few days of a hurricane or a big type of storm, we being the National Weather Service, with the help of our national centers, and we can talk about the national centers a little bit later, pretty much give a good indication of where that storm will move to, or where the hurricane might make landfall, so people know well ahead of time, so they can prepare and they can do what they need to do to keep themselves and their families safe.
And of course, we saw it with Irma, and especially Irma, because it was threatening the entire state of Florida. I mean, you saw the mass exodus. We saw the hurricane swirling out in the Atlantic there, and it was coming in toward obviously the Virgin Islands, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and then towards Florida. But the entire state of Florida was on alert, and you saw the mass exodus from people. Hundreds of thousands of people fleeing Miami, fleeing Jacksonville, fleeing Orlando. And so is that about all we can do? We can't control what the hurricane is going to do.
Right, but we can help folks make better decisions and be resilient and responsive. I mean, that's the key to it all, I think, now with storms such as Irma or storms such as Harvey, is to, take the right action. And it's not going to change the storm. The storm may still be a Category 4, Category 5.
How can the National Weather Service help besides giving this advance warning?
A lot of it is just our forecasting and our messaging.
Up to the minute updates, right?
Up to the minute. Again, I opened the show up by saying, 6, 7, 8 days out, but it's all the way up to when the event is actually happening, when the hurricane makes landfall. We're as precise as we can be with each of these storms, but we know the outcomes of certain types of storms, and the outcomes can be very dangerous or even deadly. And those are the types of storms we need people to be listening, hearing us at every moment, all the different ways we can communicate to those people. That's why you saw all those people fleeing north on the highways across Florida. They knew this was a serious situation, and that they would be right in the path or in harm's way if they stayed put. It would be risking their lives, and folks are getting smarter out there.
Yeah, I want to get into some of our video, but first I want to point to an article that was in the Fresno Bee yesterday, a commentary, because we talked at the top of the show about controlling Mother Nature. This is written by David Masamoto, and he wrote in the Fresno Bee yesterday a commentary about the weather, natural disasters. He says, "I have learned humility with weather. Long ago, I recognized you can't control Mother Nature. We forget that a 100-year storm does not mean such a storm strikes just once every 100 years. That actually means that every year there is a 1% chance that a storm of that magnitude could wreak havoc or mayhem, and next year there is another 1% chance. Is that correct?"
Pretty much.
Because we hear these numbers being thrown out all the time. Whether it's once in every 100 years, once in every 500 years. And so what do those numbers mean exactly?
Yeah. To try to put it in perspective, we can go years and years without a hurricane. I mean, and we have, especially in the Gulf and the Atlantic, we can go 4, 5, 6 years without getting a big storm. He's right. It doesn't mean that, 1 in a 100-year storm is only going to happen once every 100 years, or a 1 in 50-year storm will,
It means there's a chance it could happen every year.
It very well could. I'll give you an example. I think we talk about El Niños, and I after what happened across the valley in most of California here last winter into the early spring, I would think a lot of people out there might be saying, well, that was one heck of a winter. We got all that precipitation. Good chances are that's not going to happen again this upcoming winter. Well, not necessarily true. So we do this average interval occurrences of storms, and what that means is, yes, there's a small chance that they could reoccur every year. It could be, but it could be a very small chance. So for this year, we could still have a very wet winter coming up. Yeah. We can talk about that a little bit later, but it's statistics. Obviously, it's a little bit hard to describe or explain, but yeah, that gentleman's absolutely correct, and that's why people need to be aware. Their awareness needs to be heightened any year and any time. To be honest.
Yeah, and Masamoto goes on to say that we falsely believe that we understand weather much more than we actually do. We build a false narrative as we witness calamities everywhere, yet fail to accept that they can actually happen in our own backyard. Again, what's your comment about that? What do you think about what he said there?
I'm not going to disagree. Let's just say this. We've talked about being a no-surprise National Weather Service, so we want people to pay attention to the weather. yeah, we can have a string of very quiet, nice days like we've had the last few days here across the valley. And I'm using California as an example right now, but there's very turbulent weather occurring somewhere across the United States every day, every hour, every minute, John.
Exactly.
And so, whether you're in California, New York, Texas, wherever it may be, people have to be aware and weather savvy and weather conscious. Now, I realize, again, that's easier said than done, but we have some really good information that we message to folks all the time when conditions are changing.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question after the break, and I want you to think about it now because I get this question a lot. Where in the United States is the weather the least volatile? You know why? Because a lot of people maybe want to retire there. So the least volatile area of the United States where you can retire. Fresno isn't too volatile, and it rains here. We get a lot of rain sometimes, and other times we get 4- and 5-year droughts. So it's kind of a mixed bag. But the least volatile in the entire country, where would that be? Where is that? Someplace not too cold, maybe someplace not too hot, someplace you're not going to get it by a tornado or a hurricane. I don't know where the least volatile is. I have no idea. 436 Me TV. Option 11 will show you some of the hurricane imagery from outer space when we come back, as those 3 hurricanes, people are still bailing themselves out. In Houston, there's still massive devastation. In Florida as well, Miami, Jacksonville, and we all know what's going on. San Juan, Puerto Rico, the Dominican, all those islands down there south of Florida are in total ruins. In fact, I think Puerto Rico's still in the dark. Am I right about that? And they will be for months. Power is completely out still, right?
A good chunk.
For months on end.
Yes.
Okay, 436 Me TV option 11. Back in just a moment.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the KitchenAid appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy.
Save big with KitchenAid. Right now, get up to a $1,000 prepaid MasterCard when you purchase select KitchenAid appliances.
Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting.
Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, we'll help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
Back here with Kevin Lynott, National Weather Service in Hanford. And let me ask you before I get into more questioning here about the hurricanes and about what's going on with the weather and the least volatile. National Weather Service, as I said in the monologue, formed back in 1870, and at that time it was known as the Weather Bureau. They changed it in 1970. And so let me ask you a question. What is the purpose of the National Weather Service, and how do you help those meteorologists who are here in the Fresno Bakersfield area?
Well, as you alluded to, we've been around for a long time. Our purpose is really to protect lives and property, help enhance the economy. We are a governmental agency with about 2,223 offices, field offices across the United States.
How many employees altogether do you know?
Close to 5,000.
About 5,000 in the National Weather Service, and that's throughout the entire country.
Yeah, under NOAA National Weather Service, there's almost 5,000 of us, and we work in different places. It's important that to mention the majority are meteorologists, but not all of them. I mean, we deal with water and hydrology, so we employ a lot of hydrologists across the country at our 13 river forecast centers. We have national centers that are located in Oklahoma and Maryland and a few other places, and so we employ folks, scientists and meteorologists there. We have a number of different positions that contribute every single day to our mission for the United States and for the people of the country.
Yeah, and so here in Fresno, do you work with many of the local meteorologists and the stations?
Yeah, we do. We collaborate, John, with a number of the local stations, some more than others at times, but we have developed relationships with them, and I think it goes pretty well. We that's one of our goals. They're our partners, so we share knowledge back and forth with them. Now, when the weather's quiet, obviously we all have a pretty good handle on things, but we're always working together to get that message out there, consistent message out to the folks of the valley here, and all around Central California. We don't want to have offsetting type forecasts, if you know what I mean. Consistency is very important, and how we're delivering to the folks here each and every day.
Well, when you say consistency, does that mean that maybe, some of the stations might disagree with what the forecast is scheduled for, say, the following day or the following week? Do you get some disagreement from what they're predicting and maybe what you're predicting?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the exact same forecast. The trends might be a little bit different, maybe with one of the TV meteorologists, for example.
How often does that happen, though? Not too often, huh?
No, not a whole lot. It's real. I mean, by large differences are very, very small in my opinion, or they happen very rarely. But they go out to about 7-8 days in their forecast, just like we do at the National Weather Service in Hanford. I think
You don't go out 14 days?
No, well, we do in the National Weather Service, so we usually hand that off to one of our national centers, and they take a closer look at like a 6 to 10 or 8 to 14 day outlook. So we really do focus more on the short term, John, or more of the 6 to 7 days. And yes, some collaboration needs to go on with those TV meteorologists in that period.
Least volatile area. Have you had a chance to think about that in the country? When it comes to hurricanes, tornadoes, snow, blizzards, cold, extreme heat. What's the least
I like
volatile?
that question
Hawaii?
in a way. Actually,
Expensive to live there, though.
Yeah, when you're out on that island way out in the Pacific, you just never know. But they can get all different kinds of weather in Hawaii. But it's a good question, a hard one to answer.
Really?
I would say climatologically, and that's the key word there. You look at climate.
Say that word again?
Climatologically.
Okay. I don't know if I can say that word. That's a pretty good one.
Because it's all based on climate.
Hang on a second here. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air with our guy from the National Weather Service right here in Hanford. He's a meteorologist, Kevin Lynott. Go ahead. You're on the air, caller.
Hi, John. Hi, Kevin. I'm meteorologist Michael Friedman. I'm from the New York City area, but I'm also a frequent visitor to the Central Valley, as my good friend Mr. Mallos will attest.
Oh, hey.
And to be honest, John, you prompted me to call in. And if you just give me a quick brief on what you and Kevin are talking about, maybe I can weigh in a little.
Well, yeah, just hey, Michael. Yeah, he's a longtime meteorologist, has his meteorology degree, and Michael, we're talking about, you can't control Mother Nature, and the fact of the matter is, we've had all these hurricanes now, obviously with Harvey, Irma, Maria, still feeling the effects, the devastation, all these areas that were hit, especially Florida, and of course
Right.
San Juan, Puerto Rico, but. There was an article in the Fresno Bee yesterday. We falsely believe that we understand weather much more than we do. That was a commentary written in the Fresno Bee yesterday. We build a false narrative as we witness calamities everywhere, yet we fail to accept that we can, and these calamities can happen in our own backyard. So we're kind of talking about hurricanes, the least volatile areas in the country where someone could live. That's kind of the topic of our show today, Michael.
The least volatile. Well, of course, you're there right now. The problems that plague you guys, of course, are drought, mudslides, extreme rain following drought, as you had this past season that wiped out your drought. But, of course, we have a very active hurricane season. And what's made the difference for us this year is that we've had these landfalls. And, you could have a couple of Cat 4s or Cat 5s that just don't affect anybody except the shipping lanes. What's different this time is that we have a really juiced up ocean. Other factors like we don't have an El Nino or a La Nina right now. We're sort of what we call a neutral Nina. And other factors, including very complicated circulations that are deep, deep down, that span the entire Atlantic Ocean and then come back around the Indian Ocean through the Pacific, the entire global ocean current belt. The orientation of it is one factor that some of our top researchers think will affect the level of activity of a given Atlantic hurricane season. And we thought that this year would be a little more active than last year. Of course, that's come to be. But then again, John, just to emphasize, the main factor is it just so happens that these strong hurricanes are making landfall. So that's why we have a very, very active and very memorable 2017 hurricane season on the Atlantic side.
Yeah, stay there, Michael. Don't go away. Go ahead, Kevin. Kevin Lynott, by the way, National Weather Service, Michael.
Hi there, Kevin. Good to be with you.
Likewise.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the words, you never want to get too technical on these shows, but Michael hits on something. We have to look globally when we talk about weather, whether it's Fresno, whether it's the middle part of the country where they get tornadoes or the East Coast, anywhere in the country. You have to, and a key word is teleconnections. And again, folks aren't expected to know what teleconnections mean, but it basically means, we have to watch weather patterns all across the globe, especially, the eastern, the western part of the world, Asia, up towards Russia, and all those areas there to really see what's developing and what patterns are developing on a synoptic scale. And that's the most technical I'll get.
Okay, what I'm getting out of this
we're
conversation,
looking for patterns.
You're looking for patterns. Is that right, Kevin?
That's partially it. Mike mentioned there's so many different factors: the ocean, the land, again, these patterns that we talk about.
Go ahead and put him up, Kerry, so you can hear him. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, yeah, well, one factor that's been well researched and that I mentioned, the broad circulation way deep down, where warm water near the surface dives as it moves north toward Greenland, it sinks, and, some of the salt gets leached out. It's called the thermohaline, which is the general, it's a Gulf Stream, but it's also the larger global flow and circulation belt of all three of our major oceans, Indian, Atlantic, and Pacific. And our top researchers, Kevin, Phil Klotzbach at, I think it's UC Boulder or Colorado State,
Yeah.
came up
CSU.
with the thermohaline as a major predictor. And teleconnections, teleconnections. It means one pattern that we look at on one side of the globe can impact what goes on several days later halfway around the globe. So everything, all the patterns around the globe are really essentially intertwined and interconnected. It's fascinating stuff. And I'm sure, Kevin, we're looking now at Siberia, the advance of Siberian snow and how it predicts the severity of U.S. winters.
Interesting. Go ahead, Kevin. Comment on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of research and again, very complicated type subject to talk about, but people out there are genuinely interested in what causes the storms of this magnitude to ramp up and affect their daily lives, basically. And there's just a lot to look at, and not one weather office can do it. That's why we have national centers across. We have a National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida, and that's what those guys do. Those guys and gals do down there, and they talk about some of the stuff that Michael just mentioned.
Yeah, before I go to break here, I have to ask a very important question to Michael. I got Michael Friedman on the line here, calling from the East Coast, and he's a meteorologist, has been for many, many, many years. Follows this very closely. Kevin Lynott, National Weather Service, obviously an expert as well. And Mike, I want to get your take on this first. Two-part question, if you can answer this quickly, because I got to go to break. Is it like what the Fresno Bee commented on yesterday? We falsely believe we understand the weather much more than we do. Is that true?
No, I don't agree with that. I think our models are constantly being upgraded. We have more and more data. As Kevin will tell you, the more data we have, the more actual observable points of actual real-time data that go into the computers, the better the forecasts are going to be. So not only do we have the balloons that go up twice a day, we have great new satellites that are taking all kinds of data from the ocean, the atmosphere, and the Earth. All that has gone into the computer models to improve them so that the American global model is now coming close to being on a par with the ballyhooed and famed European computer model. So I think we're doing better than ever. Kevin, and what would you think?
What do you think, Kevin?
I would agree. I think, though, this person here is taking a Joe Q public standpoint from this article. And so with that, I agree that
From an expert standpoint, like you're an expert,
right?
Michael's an expert, so basically
we have
disagree with it because you know from the computer models, right?
Right, and Michael's correct. We have that information, that data at our fingertips 24/7.
From the ocean, from the atmosphere.
A farmer in Visalia or Hanford, California, does not. So I mean, that's the difference between what he's writing and what Michael just said.
Right. And quickly, Michael, before we go to break, why all the hurricanes and why the powerful hurricanes that we've seen in the three, Harvey, Irma, Maria? Why?
John, very warm ocean waters, in some cases a little bit above average across the Caribbean and the western and southwestern Atlantic, a little bit above average surface water temperatures in the upper 80s, as was feeding Harvey in the Gulf. Very, very warm surface temperatures, and also complicated upper air patterns that are allowing the storms to stay strong and get stronger, as opposed to a wind pattern in the upper layers of the atmosphere that would shear them or tear them apart. It's not happening with these most recent round of storms.
Okay.
And one last thing that I'd love to bring up for you and Kevin, of course, will be in on this too. Speaking of public perception versus reality in terms of the science of weather forecasting, one thing that's really got my Irish up, and I'm not even Irish, over the years is when reporters and the media says, you know, hurricanes have a mind of their own. That's not true. I mean, it's physics. There are always forces that are determining why the hurricane zigs instead of zags.
Okay. All right. Do you agree? I want you to comment. You got the floor, Kevin.
Well, yeah, the predictability is increasing with these storms, and we generally know how hurricanes behave.
This is based on scientific.
Yeah, these are large scale storms. And again, the closer we're into it, whether it's 12, 24 hours, the better we do.
Right.
The more confidence in the short term than there would be, say, 3 to 5 to 7 days out. But again, the tools are there, the science is there, and I think we are improving, and we are getting that strong message out to folks to prepare for the worst when we see something like a Maria or a Irma or a Harvey.
Yeah. Incredible. Okay, Michael, we got to go to break, so I appreciate you calling in. Hope you have a good day. Stay safe there on the East Coast.
You too, my pleasure, and good to be on with you too, Kevin. Everybody have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael Friedman, meteorologist on the East Coast. We got our expert right here, Kevin Lynott, and hard to answer the question where the least volatile weather is, where you can safely raise a family, safely retire, safely grow up. I don't know. Not sure about that. Have to give that some serious thought. 436-ME-TV, option 11. We do have an open phone line. We'll talk about the Central Valley, and we'll take a look at some of those hurricanes from outer space. I'm sure Kevin has seen those a million times over in the last 3 or 4 weeks or so. But we're going to show them again to you, and he can describe what actually happened. Back in just a moment.
Frigidaire. It means the first electric refrigerator, the first compact electric range. Now, there's the Frigidaire Gallery Range with Symmetry double ovens. It's designed to cook multiple dishes at multiple temperatures, so you can prepare the entire meal at the same time. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Samsung big screen we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy.
Time for that upgrade to an HD 3D web-enabled Samsung TV.
Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
Back here with Kevin Lynott. Is it possible to get too technical for the general public? Because you're so much into this scientific stuff, and you studied it, you know it, and we're better at it than we were 30 years ago with the computer models, the internet, the satellites that are up above. Do we understand how the ocean and the atmosphere are connected and how they all work together?
Our meteorologists do, yeah, but we're not.
You do,
we're
obviously.
Well, to the best I can.
Yeah.
We all have, we've all had at least undergraduate studies in earth sciences and meteorology. So we hope it takes us a long way, and it helps us do our job that much better. But the key here, what we've been talking about the last 10, 15 minutes, is we still have to convey a message to the general public. And
that's really your job.
There's millions of them out there. That's our job. When we can't get into the weeds, we've just got to be, kind of straight shooters, if you will, with folks. They want to know, when it's going to happen, what time,
how much devastation, all that.
Yeah. That especially with a bigger type event like a hurricane.
Sure.
But no, we try to stay away from the technical jargon as much as we can, and that's important because people don't understand that. We don't expect.
Can it become
gotta keep
too
it simple.
technical? Like, say, a sportscaster could get too technical when it comes to, say, baseball, football, basketball. Unless you're watching ESPN, it's okay. But if you're the general public may not be as, I'll give you an example. The majority of the people that watch the Super Bowl each and every year probably don't watch football on a regular basis during the regular season, but they watch the Super Bowl because it's a national event. It's like a national holiday to a certain extent. Yeah, am I right? Is that a good correlation?
I think it's a very good correlation. So if you're watching the Super Bowl for the first time and the announcer on TV is talking about a nickel or a dime package for the defense, what is that telling you?
You're going to lose that person.
Well, yeah. I mean, you hear that, don't you?
I understand it because we watch football forever. But anyway, this caller's been patient. Go ahead. What's your question about the National Weather Service and how they're doing? And, of course, we don't have to worry about tornadoes and hurricanes right here in Fresno, but we're talking about them. But we're going to get to the Fresno weather in just a moment here. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, Kevin, let me ask you a direct question. I think, the average person, you kind of turn them off with all these technical things as far as the weather, but it's good to know. I mean, it's like John says, tornadoes. There are times that they're right when, hey, tornado's going to hit so-and-so, whatever. But these last, 3, 4 events, as far as hurricanes and all that, that's devastating, But I want to ask you a direct question. I don't know if it's a direct thing with the weather and all that, but I believe the global, situation, warming and has a lot to do with it because of, what's happening with tornadoes and hurricanes and whatnot. And do you think that's a good question as far as the global warming having something to do with a lot of the weather situations that have arisen the last maybe, let's say maybe a year or two? That's all I want to ask you, Kevin. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good
absolutely.
question, too. Yeah.
Well, the globe, there's no doubt about it, John. The Earth and the globe is changing. The climate's changing. The data is out there to prove it. I think that I'm not going to sit here and tell you how much or how fast it's changing. I don't have that at my fingertips, and that's always debated. But there is enough change going on out there that, especially in the oceans, and that's been pretty well known here now for the last decade or two. What's changing in the oceans, and water is just a huge source for storms, and whether they're hurricanes in the Atlantic, whether it's atmospheric river, the Pineapple Express in the Pacific Ocean. I mean, it can drive these stronger storms to the land, or to the mainland, I should say, and other parts of the world for that matter. So we're really watching the oceans. There's no doubt there's some change that's going on that's altering the weather patterns. To what extent, John, I really don't know, because we go through trends. Weather goes through trends, and so it's the predictability's tough.
All right, before we run out of time here, I do want to roll some of these videotapes that I have, and I want to start with, and this has no sound on it. None of these really have any sound. So let's start with hurricane origins. This has no sound. I want you to check out the monitor here, Kevin, and you can comment. This is where they come from. Now go ahead and take that Connect With Me thing down there, and most hurricanes that hit the U.S. come from Africa, the western portion, the coast, Cape Verde. Okay, do you agree with that?
Totally.
Okay.
Yep,
Here's
for the
what's
most
happening.
part.
You can go ahead and comment as we're seeing the video here. Hot air, cool, moist air. True?
Yep. Yeah, well, when cool and warm, moist air collide, you get development of clouds, you get development of storms, and then the winds take it from there. So
what is that? Is that the ocean current that they're showing there, or is that the wind? What is that? What are we looking at?
Both, but you're looking really more probably out of wind field here, and the driving factors of because the hurricanes in the Atlantic move from east to west, right? And again, the genesis area, or where this convection starts. And by the way, the tropics. How many times do we talk about the tropics for hurricanes, for El Nino? Yeah, and they
look at that. The strongest winds are in September.
Usually,
it's going. Hang on, caller. Get to It's going from east to west.
Yep.
They interact with some of the warm waters, I guess, in the ocean is what they're showing now, right?
Yeah. So what you're reading there, if you're reading through it, it's absolutely correct. I really don't need to add too much more commentary because it does. Sometimes they just start as cluster of storms, but then they get much more organized as soon as they move over that warmer water into the west.
Right. And for those people that can't see the screen, you're talking about 74 mile an hour winds. That's a category what?
It should be, I think, Category 1 at that point.
Yeah, all right, and it shoots up to a Category 5 if it's over 150 miles an hour?
Yes, I don't have the exact numbers, but yes, it's in that range.
And so that's why we see these hurricanes hitting the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, and Florida, and also the Gulf Coast. Am I right about that?
Yeah, and again, it depends what direction. Again, somewhat complicated. Now we're looking at the Pacific there, and yeah, these disturbances can actually move over Old Mexico and then reform or regenerate, in the Pacific or the Baja, near the Baja, south of the Baja California, and then take off more to the west again. Again, it doesn't impact California because we're too far north. But if they turn the right way, John, then that's when we have to worry about, like the path Irma took.
Yeah.
So just think of I'll say this real quick, think of all the energy that feeds into these storms or hurricanes over the Atlantic, because it goes over thousands and thousands of miles of very warm water, especially near the surface of the water. And so all that energy's got to be released somehow, and then unfortunately it's got to hit land at some point in time, and that's what you've been seeing here the last month.
Yeah, I just find it fascinating that these hurricanes, it all starts at the northwestern tip of Africa. The wind starts, the ocean starts. The atmosphere and the oceanic conditions, they mix together. They create this swirl, which is a hurricane, and it travels east to west. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I'll just say one other thing.
How many people actually know that that's where it starts?
Yeah, not a whole lot, probably. Hopefully some have learned today. But keep in mind, they gain so much momentum as they move across the Atlantic or the Pacific.
Do they gain momentum as they move further west?
Typically, they do. Again, the warmer waters, the Gulf Stream, and a lot contributes to, again, keeping it, a very high impact type of storm.
They gain speed. They gain power.
Right, and this is not something that's 5 or 10 square miles. These are hundreds of square miles. So
over the Atlantic.
Yeah, and so the impacts are so widespread, John, that if it does make a landfall, you can just imagine. I mean, it's not it's not a small area. It's southern and central Florida, for example. For Irma, it was all the way even up into northern Florida.
It's amazing to see that,
how
Mother Nature works, and you can't stop Mother Nature. Caller, you've been patient. Go ahead. You're on the air with Kevin.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I spent 23 years in the Air Force, and I know that they had the capability, I assume they still do, to seed clouds out at sea and cause a hurricane to diminish at least in intensity. But then the insurance companies, rightly so, got into it. So wait a minute, if you change that Hurricane 4 to a 2, and it comes ashore other than what it would have if you had not done anything, then it's a man-made occurrence. It's not a natural occurrence, and that's just going to avoid the insurance area. So I just wonder if you've got any updated information on that, if the Air Force is still doing it, or if they still have the capability to do it. I know they still send the planes out to penetrate the storms to find out what their intensity is. And so any information on that?
Yeah.
Well, I know that the NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft goes out to these storms once they get within a certain range of U.S. territory. I don't know about the military. I'm sure they also do some stuff, but I'll say this. Don't be fooled whether it's a Category 4 or a Category 2. Largely, when you see the higher category type storm, a lot has to do with the wind speed, and the winds that are associated with the hurricane. But I'm telling you, and although winds can be devastating, and they are in a Cat 4 or Cat 5 hurricane, it's the rainfall. And, Harvey was a perfect example of that. The rainfall is really what has the biggest impact in most hurricanes, especially in the United States. And I can't speak for India and other.
Because we saw what happened in Houston. We saw what happened in Florida. And we're seeing the devastation in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I'll show you that in just a moment. Go ahead, caller. Anything else?
Yeah, we also used to have a company based out of Fresno here. I think, if I remember right, it was Atmospherics International. And he used to go all over the world doing seeding to generate rain. And we had a lawsuit against California by Nevada because they said we were wringing the clouds out on this side of the Sierras, and they weren't getting as much rain as they should have. So I don't know if they're still in business or not, but maybe the guest has information on that, because that's going to affect weather. It's going to change it. Now, it may, like you said, the devastating part is rains, but the intensity determines somewhat where that storm comes ashore. So I could see the insurance companies not wanting man to fool with it when they've got their insurance based upon a natural event, a disaster caused by God, and the man goes out there and sticks his foot in it, and different people, maybe more people, maybe less people, and maybe less destruction or more destruction, and it's a complicated thing, I'll tell you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, caller. I appreciate it. Got to go, but let's see. We got. I'm going to continue now. I'm not going to go to a break, but I do want to show the damage. You talked about the water damage. This is what can happen after a hurricane, and we'll show you some of those satellite imageries. Let's go to the Houston aerial shot. Let's just go to that one because Hurricane Harvey hit first, and we'll see some of the devastation there. That is the after effect of a hurricane. Look at that water, the amount of water, trillions upon trillions and trillions of gallons of water, devastating a beautiful estate like this and others. That's the after effect, right, Kevin?
Yes,
That's
torrential rainfall, and that is the biggest danger in most hurricanes or tropical systems, in my opinion. And take a look at that picture, and you can see why. How many folks in across eastern Texas, or just inland a little bit there in Texas, are going to tell you that they suffered the most damage from Harvey's winds? Not many. Not many. It's what you're looking at right now, and Mother Nature squeezed out every drop of rain it could with that system.
Yeah, not only is it the floods, but before the rain hits, it's really the torrential rain, obviously, that causes this total devastation, can ruin someone's life. Hang on, caller, I'll get to you in a minute. But it's obviously the torrential rains and I'm going to say gale force winds. Am I right about that?
Yep.
I mean, you're talking about winds of well over 125, well over 150. In this case, 175 miles an hour.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and can't forget the waves or the swell as well. When if you're living right along the coastline, that can be devastating as well.
So you have to worry about the winds and then the torrential rains. All right,
you bet.
We'll get out of that video there and take the call. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air. You've been patient. Kevin Lynott is on today's program. He's the guest. National Weather Service. What's your question?
Hi, John, and hi, Kevin. Interesting show. Great. I'm glad you guys are covering this. I got a question. Recently I heard, and I kind of tuned in late, so I haven't heard the whole show, but it looks like you guys are talking about the floods. And I recently heard a local show. They were talking about the insurance and how so many people in these hurricane areas were devastated, and a lot of them are not going to be able to recover because of inadequate insurance. And having worked in the insurance industry before, I think a lot of times is that they may not be in a flood area or an earthquake area, and so they don't purchase it or not advised. And I don't know what the percentage of the people that are in the situation in that area, but I mean, is there a potential here in the valley? Do we have any kind of weather threats in the history that if I haven't purchased earthquake insurance, is it something maybe I should consider because there could be a possibility, and same thing with flood.
All right.
Thanks. That would just be my question. Thanks. Bye.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, I want to answer the first part of his comment or question. And it is true, in Texas, there were folks who were told, they didn't have to have flood insurance. They were well out of the floodplain, and those people were flooded, and they don't have anything to fall back on. I mean, they were well outside the floodplain. So it tells you how huge of a storm Harvey was and how much rain was associated with it well inland. So it's that part
and
is
how
very
about
unfortunate.
Here in the Central Valley? And by the way, are earthquakes related to the weather?
No.
Not really?
No.
Okay.
But and I'm not really familiar with earthquake insurance, but again, you can get with your local county emergency management or even your insurance company, and they'll tell you, if you're in a floodplain, you're in a high risk area for water. Here in the Central Valley, we just went through a very wet period of weather.
Yeah.
Obviously, over the winter and early spring, when rivers really did come up. Yeah. Most of it was, in the foothills, but some of it did make it down to some of the main stem rivers or channels here through the valley. So there are some very areas, tough areas, I guess you could say, low-lying areas, right, that are kind of under the gun for potential of flooding, and people should be completely aware of that. But for the most part, I don't think it's a really huge issue out here.
I want to roll another piece of videotape here. Got to get this in. I want to show the time lapse from Irma. No sound. We'll talk about it. You know what you're going to be looking at. What am I looking at here? This is a time lapse of Irma coming in, bearing down on the islands and in Florida.
Yeah, again, we talked about it moving west to east, and that's what it's doing. Is it's hitting the U.S. territories, the islands, the Virgin Islands, and then moving over Puerto Rico.
What's the red mean? That means what?
Yeah, well, what we're getting here, I'm just taking a lot of the darker colors. If I have it right, that's where you're getting some of the deeper convection, the reds and the darker colors with the hurricane. That's closer to the inner eye wall where you have the strongest convection with any type of hurricane. Again, you're just getting so much wind and heavy rain in that area as it's moving toward Puerto Rico and Cuba there.
And I want to run one more piece of videotape before we run out of time here. It's called Maria from Outer Space. Maria from Space. This is Maria right here, bearing down again, just devastating San Juan, Puerto Rico, the Dominican. Look at that, Kevin.
Yeah, they're again, sometimes they do create their own environment in a way, and they have to be watched. Yeah, and we watch. We watch it. You're looking at satellite data. We have the new GO 16. It's still in its latter experimental stages. It's geostationary satellite that NOAA and NASA just put up. back, I don't know, about 6, 7, 8 months ago, and it's still testing, but it's giving us some really great products. It's helping us investigate these hurricanes and other storms as well across the across North America. So, but here, either way, you're getting good satellite imagery what this hurricane is doing, and I'm not going to go into details. I know we don't have time, but powerful, very powerful.
Just powerful stuff, incredible. All right. With the little time we have left, I'm going to take another phone call here, and then we need to talk about the Central Valley here and what to expect this coming winter.
Sure.
Caller, go ahead. Quickly, short on time. What's your quick question?
On September 1st of this year, here in Reedley, Selma, and I believe Parlier had a terrible night windstorm.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And I was wondering if your guest could let us know what that event was, because we never caught it on the news.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for the call. I appreciate it. A call from Reedley.
I don't know if she's still there. What date? Did she give a date?
September 1st.
September 1st.
That wasn't all that long. It was
No.
what's today, the 25th? So that was like 24 days ago. Hard to find. You'd have to do
Sometimes
research
I have
on
a
it,
hard
right?
time remembering what happened 4 days ago. But
4 minutes ago. Go ahead.
Right.
We have about 5 minutes left.
There was a good storm, a bunch of storms. There are storms now.
The beginning of September.
So, I think it was Monday, September 11th, and I thought maybe she was alluding to that event. But
what was that event there?
Well, there were thunderstorms that moved from south to north through the valley, contained a very heavy rainfall. They were moving quick. The
With
storms.
winds, high winds.
High winds, yes.
So maybe that's
high
what
winds,
she's
and there was some
referring
damage
to.
reported almost across the central and eastern part of the valley. I'm wondering if she's alluding to that those storms on the 11th of September. But the first,
you remember that event, right? That
Yeah.
those storms going from south to north, heavy rain.
Yep.
Across the mountainous regions.
Mountains and in this case the valley, which is not very typical for the time. It can happen, but it's not typical.
Why did that happen if it's not so typical?
Just kind of got into a weather pattern where it was, I wouldn't call it monsoon, but we just had to fetch a nice moisture moving up, and we had a low pressure system just coming onto the coast, central southern California coast, that helped everything come together to give us storms on that particular day. So the Weather Service in Hanford was ready and alert to that situation, and maybe that's what she's talking about.
Give us the forecast for this winter. Are we going to expect more rain or as much rain? I think we have 3 minutes left, but you can do it in that.
I can do it in that. I hope to do it under a minute. There's always a level of uncertainty, John.
Hang on, caller. I'll get to you in a moment.
If you remember, Michael talked about the patterns in the Pacific. It's not a La Nina. It's not a El Nino type setup or pattern yet, but it looks like we're going to a weak La Nina here as we go into the fall.
Which means less rain or more rain?
Well, I'll just say this. It's going to be hard to match what we received in 2016 into early 17. It really is going to be very hard. But I'll even go out on a limb, John, and tell you that it should be. We're going to have our wet periods, I think, this winter. I think we're going to have at least average rainfall. If the pattern sets up a little similar to last year, we're going to see rain again. It could be back-to-back years of very wet weather. And again, it's going to be hard to match last year, but I'm going to say at least average rainfall, which could amount to 9, 10, 11 inches in the valley this winter.
Average is good.
Average is good. It'll keep us out of the drought, hopefully.
Right.
Again, we'll see. I'm going out on a limb a little bit on that, but I don't think it's going to be a completely dry winter coming up by any means.
We're not going to hold you to it. You're not going to hold your feet to the fire. Okay, caller, I've got like 30 seconds. Quickly, caller, you're on the air. Quickly.
Okay, if I want to find out what a storm done on a specific date, who do I contact?
Yeah, quickly, because we got about a minute left.
Yeah, you can give us a call at the National Weather Service in Hanford. We likely have the information, especially if it was recent, like within the last few weeks or maybe month or two.
Number?
559-584-0583. That's 584-0583.
Okay, and one more time slowly. 559.
584-0583.
All right.
And that'll go right into our operations area, and we'll do the best that we can to help you. If not, there's other ways to get some information that you're requesting.
Hey, how about your website there, Kevin?
Yeah. weather.gov/Hanford or HNX. That's our 3-letter identifier, so you can type in HNX or Hanford.
Or just Google National Weather Service Hanford,
You
right?
do that too. We're at NWS Hanford. That's our handle for Twitter. And, of course, we're on Facebook.
Yeah, you're on Facebook too, and you can see satellite imagery on there and whatever the case may be.
A lot of good information and graphics.
You heard it first right here. It's going to be at least an average rainy season right here in the Central Valley. And that coming from the expert meteorologist Kevin Lynott from the National Weather Service in Hanford. And you've been a good friend of this program, and I appreciate it, Kevin.
I always enjoy it, John, and giving you my predictions and telling you a little bit about the Weather Service in Hanford. We're here to serve, and we're happy to help people like you out.
All right. This was a fun conversation, and glad that Cindy got her little airtime there.
I'm sure she's watching.
All right. Kevin, come back again soon. I'm sure you're going to be back this winter and talk about what's going on.
Let me know.
Sure. Okay.
Let me know. Thank you.
Kevin Lynott, National Weather Service. Glad you tuned in. Hey, just don't forget, the weather affects all of us, my friends, no matter what. Tomorrow, we'll have the president of the Police Officers Association in the House talking about that, and working on a show for Thursday, possibly talking about the NFL players taking a knee during the national anthem. See you tomorrow. Have a great day.